Morning, Afrit. Okay, so I have sent you the link for today's live stream. Can someone check whether it is working fine?
Yes, sir, it is working.
It is working fine. Okay, great. Someone check whether it is working. Okay, so students, I have shared the link for today's live stream. Right. So in the previous class, that is on Friday, I shared a video with you, and the video is about Python classes and inheritance. Have you guys all gone to through that? Students?
Yes, sir, a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why?
I get a brief explanation about how to use that class, like that.
Okay, from the video lecture, you got a brief explanation of how to use classes. Is that what you said, Abhishek?
Yes, sir, approx.
Okay. So now, anyway, I thought of spending a little bit more time with you guys today regarding the classes. Okay, classes and objects. Because when we say about classes and objects, so let me. Okay, I don't think I have it. That actually, you know what? I'll tell you a small story that happened. About 2 days before I went on my faculty vacation, right? I was coming to the institute on my motorcycle, and okay, wait. And my bag, which I usually tie up on my motorcycle, uh, that day the rope snapped due to some reason, and the bag fell down. The bag had my laptop, my wallet which contained so many cards, etc., and my lunch box and my water bottle as well. And it snapped. The bag fell down. I did not know about this. I came all the way to the institute, and the institute security guard told me that the rope is hanging loose on my motorcycle at the end. And that is when I realized, wow, I lost my laptop. So I lost my laptop as well as my all my configurations in that accident. And the laptop, I got it back after some time. I kept checking. I kept looking for the device and the bag, and I got it uh, in about 2 hours after the incident. But the laptop was in like puppered, right? It was kind of that situation because a vehicle ran on top of the bag also. Okay, so I just the reason why I told you this is I usually use this program called SM, which is screen message, to type something out so that you will be able to see it. Okay, so I usually types out something out using the screen message. So in the previous class I had shared a video on Python classes and objects, and that was an MIT OCW video. Okay, MIT is Massachusetts Institute of Technology, OCW is Open Courseware. Open Courseware is just like our Moodle, not Moodle, our NPTEL courses which are free of cost available, right? So just like that, MIT OCW was the very first open courseware material that was available in the world. In fact, they introduced the idea. Okay, so I had shared this video with you, and this is supposed to teach you about classes. Now, what exactly what exactly do we mean by classes and objects? That's the thing. Okay, so when I say about classes and objects, what we say is about something called object oriented programming. Okay, OOPS, or let me just call it as OOP, object oriented programming. Now there are two types of programming that we can generally think of. One is procedural oriented programming and another one is object oriented.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, are you sharing the screen?
Am I not? Thank you. Who said this?
Sir, Dhanush.
Dhanush. Thank you, Dhanush. I was not showing my screen, unfortunately. That was by mistake. And anyway, that has been recorded, and the screen also will be available on the recording. Anyway, good that who asked me this question? Dhanush.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dhanush, for being attentive and to tell me the problem. Okay, so yeah, so what we were discussing about was the object oriented programming. So OOPS is what we know it as. OOPS stands for object oriented programming. There are two kind of programming we can generally think of as. One is object oriented programming and one is procedural oriented programming. Okay, now the object oriented programming allows for code reuse, etc. Okay, now the major concept that you will learn from OOPS is the way we are going to deal with the entities. Okay, so let's say in procedural oriented programming, if we have to create a program to, or if we have to create boil a packet of, or boil a liter of milk. Okay, in the procedural oriented programming, we will take help of the algorithm. Of course, in the object oriented programming as well, we have the algorithm. So in the algorithm, we may majorly focus on what? Milk, the variables, all right, and the operations. Okay, so we can think of it as the variables and the operations generally. Okay, where I will simply create variables or and manipulate it. Okay, that is what we do in procedural oriented programming. And let me open up another lesson. In object oriented programming, okay, we introduce the concept of objects and classes. Okay, so in OOPS we introduce the concept of objects and classes. Now what does objects and classes mean? So that is where we have our discussion based today. Yeah. So when we look at object oriented programming system, okay, I told you OOPS. OOPS can be thought of as object oriented programming system. It contains objects, classes, and this enables a few other things around in concepts. So, for example, one is inheritance, another thing is called polymorphism, and another thing is called abstraction, and another thing is called encapsulation. So, object oriented programming is achieved by making use of classes and objects, but by making use of that we will also do the following things, which are encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, and inheritance. Okay, so when we look at object oriented programming, right, not this one, I just wanted to show you that picture. Yeah, when we look at the object oriented programming, we have class, objects, properties, and methods. Okay, as you can see in the image over here. Okay, let me see whether I can make the image bigger. Yeah, right. So we have this is a bit blurred because the image is of lower resolution, and I've just zoomed it up so that you will be able to see it. So in the object oriented programming, we have something called a class. A class is synonymous to the C programming structure that you have learned. In C programming, you have learned something called structure. So a class is synonymous to a structure. Now we have something called class. Then, so the class can be named as vehicle. The class can be named as bus. The class can also be named as staff. The class can also be named as IT staff. Okay, or the class can also be named as human. Okay, so anything. A class is represented, or a class is representing a real world entity and its properties is what you need to understand now. Okay, a class represents a real world entity and its properties. Okay, so a class, then you have something called an object, and then object is an instance of a class. Say for example, a class, I can say Homo sapiens is a class, while if I say, let's say I am going to just write a simple so class Homo sapien. Okay, so I'm just saying this is the class over here. Okay, and I'm not going to define anything or write anything. Okay, so we have a class called Homo sapien, and if we create an object of Homo sapien Anoop. Okay, so here Anoop is a variable name, or Anoop is an object of the class Homo sapien. Okay, and Anoop may have several methods associated with it. Okay, or the class Homo sapien may contain several methods associated with it. Okay, so it could have method 1. Okay, it could have method 2. Okay, so that's a class Homo sapien, and Anoop is an object of the class Homo sapien. Okay, so here I am saying Homo sapien is a class, and Anoop is an object of the class Homo sapien. Okay, and then there can be methods associated with it, methods as well as attributes. Okay, so it could have Anoop dot height, Anoop dot weight, Anoop dot get weight, that's a method, right? That's a method, and this is an attribute. Attribute, or what we call as property. So this is again an attribute, and then you have the property. Okay, attribute or property, and then you have the functions or the methods. So here, as an example, I told you that a class can be thought of as something that is used to represent a real world entity. A real world entity may have certain properties associated with it, may have certain methods associated with it, etc. Okay, so in this example we have a class called Homo sapien. So we have not defined the Homo sapien class in Python way or anything. I'm just trying to tell you that the class will contain some methods and attributes or properties. So in this example, I've shown you a class, an object, methods and properties. Okay, so you have a class, objects, properties such as email address, email, then address, and methods like verify, send email, etc. So this is what you can think of what object oriented programming basic
Excuse
is.
me,
Yes, excuse.
sir.
Who
What
this?
is the meaning of Homo sapien? You said before, right?
Homo sapien? Who is this? Who is asking this question?
Sir, Dhanush.
Dhanush, can you please search what is Homo sapien? Can somebody else please tell Dhanush what is Homo sapien?
Sir, we humans.
A class of human beings.
Yes,
Human
it's a
beings.
scientific
Biological
name
name
for
of
it's a scientific name for human beings. Okay, so
Okay,
human beings
okay.
have evolved over a period of time as per Charles Darwin, and we before before we came to existence on this planet in this form, we have had different forms, is what Darwin says, and the current form, as we know, is called Homo sapien. That's okay, Dhanush, but I am surprised that you did not know this, but that is okay even if you do not know it. Okay, that's absolutely fine. Maybe you have right. Okay, so for example, if you look at these primate species, okay, these are different species of primates, and as per the science, we have evolved from pretty rudimentary species and have come up to be a more complex and advanced species like what we have we are right now, where we use computers to communicate, while
Yes, sir.
normal
Got it.
monkeys do not do that. All right. Anyway, so what I meant was we are a Homo sapien class, right? Now, another example I can think of is let's say I can say a class called vehicle. Okay. So here Homo sapien and vehicle are both classes. Okay, and for vehicle, if I say vehicle, okay, car or vehicle, motor car. So here vehicle is a class and motor car is an object. And for example, I showed you Anub as an object. Okay, so Anub has certain methods and it has certain attributes associated with it. So the methods are method 1, method 2 and get weight. Okay, there are attributes like height and weight as well. Okay, now when it comes to object oriented programming, I told you we have objects, classes, and it also allows us to do certain things like inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction and encapsulation. Okay, so let's just try to understand what exactly is object oriented programming. Okay, so this object oriented programming, right, it allows us to it gives us a little bit more of what you call as security, reusability, effective communication, developing complex software, easily upgraded, easy partition of work, maintenance efficiency, etc. Okay, and it says that the OOPS models complex things as reproducible simple structures, and this allows reusable OOPS objects can be used across programs and allows for class specific behavior through polymorphism, easier to debug classes often contain all applicable information to them. Okay, and secure protects information through encapsulation. So I told you about certain things like encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism and inheritance, and what you have actually read over here are kind of related to those four things related to object oriented programming. Okay, so inheritance, meaning that let's say I have a class called vehicle. Okay, vehicle will have let's say attributes like wheels, engine capacity and certain other details, while a car could be another class which is actually derived from the class vehicle. Okay, and say for example let me just check that once. So your question paper for this CD2, I had a part B where I added a OR question, and the idea was one question was related to Django and one question was related to classes and objects, and there was a question figure number 1 that was given over here. Okay, over here what we have seen is it is asking you to create and explain the concept of classes, objects and methods and attributes in Python, and it is asking you to inherit the classes. Say for example over here a mountain bike has the properties of a bike, and a bike has the properties of a registered vehicle, and a registered vehicle will have the properties of a vehicle. Or when I think about it, or when I say this again, I will say that the vehicle contains certain methods and attributes. So the class vehicle contains certain methods and attributes. A vehicle can be either a registered vehicle or a bicycle. So a bicycle is also a vehicle. So a registered vehicle will contain the set of attributes and the methods vehicle contained. So let us say vehicle contains a set of attributes and methods. So registered vehicle is going to inherit those properties such as the methods and the attributes, and I can define the registered vehicle to have more methods and properties as well, which are not there in the vehicle. Okay, and a cycle is also now inherited from the vehicle, and a bike and a car is also inherited from the registered vehicle. So whatever properties and attributes and methods the registered vehicle has will be inherited by the bike and the car as well. But at the same time, the bike class and the car class can also include more additional properties and methods. Okay, so that is what we mean by inheritance. So meaning that child classes inherit data and behaviors from parent class. So we know we are human beings, right? We all are human beings, and we know that there's something called genetics that play a big role in the way we are what we are, right? For example, every human being is a child of two parents, right? A father and a mother, and every child inherits certain properties from the father and the mother. For example, I'll tell you a very simple example. I mean, I may be wrong as well, so do not consider it to be the the last final knowledge or something. I'm just explaining it to you so that you will be able to understand. So let's assume that a father and a mother gives birth to a child. The father has curly hair and the mother has straight hair on the head. Okay, what are the chances, or what hair could the child have is dependent on which of the hairs is a dominant trait. Okay, so whether the curly hair or the straight hair, which one among these two is a dominant trait, and that will be passed on to the child. Okay, so this is what you can think of as inheritance in the real world. Okay, and in Python inheritance as well, right? As we have seen, like in this example, in this image, where one class is inherited from another class, thereby inheriting the attributes and methods of that class and making it usable in the new inherited class. Okay, so with regards to the curly hair and the straight hair, from what I know, from what I have been told so far, is that the curly hair is a dominant trait, and if both parents have, I mean, if one parent has curly hair and if another parent has straight hair, then the child most probably will have curly hair. Okay, now that is what you call as the inheritance. Another thing is encapsulation. So inheritance allows a particular or inheritance allows a new class to be inherited from an existing class such that the data and the behavior of the existing class is inherited to the new class, right? A child class inherit data and behaviors from the parent class. That is what inheritance is. Next is encapsulation. What does encapsulation mean? Encapsulation means it provides security. It provides security. So we were reading about certain things, right? Secure protects information through encapsulation. So encapsulation containing information in an object, exposing only selected information. So I am going to say that over here I had some attribute like height and weight. Okay, height and weight were my attributes or properties, and those have been exposed, as in anybody who knows that there is an object called Anoop will be able to get the height of Anoop, Anoop.height. or Anoop dot weight. Okay, this is because of poor encapsulation. This is because of what? Poor encapsulation. Because I have not implemented the class in a proper way. I should have actually encapsulated it such that although these two, Anoop.height and Anoop.weight, will still remain as the attribute or property of the class, you will make it in such a way that you will no longer be able to access, say, Anoop.height is equal to 171 centimeter. So I can actually assign the value this way. If the property is exposed, property or attribute is exposed, and if it is not exposed, okay, then this assignment operation cannot be performed. Okay, that is encapsulation. I mean, I wouldn't say this is the entire encapsulation. Okay, there is a bit more that you need to understand from about encapsulation. So, for example, 171 centimeter is what we wanted to set for that attribute height. So, if in the class Homo sapien, if in the class Homo sapien, there is something called private and public. Okay, if I keep the height and weight as private, okay, as private, then I cannot read or write value to that directly. Okay, instead what I will have to do is I will have to have a function called get height and set height. Okay, so now what I am saying is that we have a class called Homo sapien, which contains height and weight as the attributes or the properties. And in this particular example, I am trying to introduce you to a concept called public members and private members. Private members means that those members of a class who are not exposed publicly, whose values cannot be accessed publicly by any other class or object, is a private member. So, in a class we can have private members as well as public members. Private members would be the people or the attributes and the methods which are accessible only to that class. No other entity shall access it from outside. Say like Anoop.height is equal to 171 centimeter. That is illegal. Okay, it cannot be done, and it can be done only by using methods like get height or set height. So, set height, as we can see, will be something like this. Okay, is it clear to all of you? So, we have learned
Yes, sir.
inheritance and we have learned encapsulation.
Sir,
Yes.
sir,
Sir, if the private methods
Uh,
are access to only that class, sir, can it be access to that inherited class? Like if we created
no,
a
no,
yeah, attribute like height and weight in Homo sapien,
no, you
and
cannot.
if we are
You cannot.
okay, sir.
Just a second, guys. അമ്മേ അമ്മ എന്തുവാ ഞാൻ ക്ലാസ് എടുക്കുക ഞാൻ തിരിച്ചു വിളിക്കാം അത്യാവശ്യം എന്തെങ്കിലും ഉണ്ടോ ആ okay so no you cannot so that is where you have something called protected members okay so you have something like public and private members okay and there is some members called protected members okay so protected members are like the private members but who can be inherited to other classes okay so we have learned inheritance and encapsulation. Now there is something called abstraction and polymorphism. So abstraction, what is abstraction? If I actually hide the implementation details and I just give you a function saying that you can actually get your required functionality by just calling this function or this method okay so with that way say for example square root of a number can be determined by 2 or 3 algorithms okay and if I give you a method let's say I have a class called I'm going to write it I'm going to take that extra effort so that you will be able to understand what it is so let's say I'm going to create a class called math okay and the class math contains a method called square root okay now the square root of a number can be calculated in a number of ways okay now for a user let's say who uses the square root function okay let's say class let's say m dot sqrt okay so for a user who uses okay it's not m but it is object dot square root okay so for a user who uses the object 1 dot square root does he or she know how the square root of the number is calculated? No, he or she doesn't know and need not know as well, and that is the concept of abstraction. Okay, so it only exposes high level public methods for accessing an object. And next is polymorphism. Polymorphism means that, let's assume as an example, as a very simple example, okay, I have two numbers, say number a comma b, or let's say for easiness I am going to write it as int a comma b, okay, and when I say a plus b, we know the functionality of the arithmetic operator plus, correct? if I on the other hand say that we have something like complex A B, or let's say C and D, and C plus D, okay, operation performed at A plus B, and C plus D are different. One is integer addition and another one is addition, and another one is complex number addition, okay. Or I can say string A comma B, and I can say A plus B. Here we do not know what does the plus do unless we define it, okay. Here plus has, wow, what happened? Why is my computer stuck? Okay, so here in the above A plus B, A and B are integer values. Below A plus C plus D, C and D are complex values, and in the below A plus B, A and B are string. Now it depends how I have defined what sort of string addition it should be. So which means that I can use the concept of polymorphism, okay, and I can actually have this plus do different operations, or I can also say that I can have, let's say, a function called addition, okay. So in over here we had plus, right, plus plus plus, and on the other hand if I say that I have a function called addition, addition can perform addition of 2 numbers or addition of 3 numbers or addition of 4 numbers, etc., or it can also perform addition of floating point numbers, or it can perform addition of complex numbers, or it can perform the addition of string, okay. So that is what polymorphism means. So many methods can do the same task. So this is the idea of object oriented programming, okay. And let's say in Python programming language, everything and anything is treated as an object, okay. Say for example, I do not know whether I have the IPython program. No, I do not have Python. IPython. I do not have Python also. Wow. Okay, I have Python 3. Okay. So import NumPy. Oh, I do not have that. Import math dot sqrt, or let's say x is equal to 5 plus 3j, okay, and x dot, yeah, x dot real is a method, okay. X dot image is another method. X dot conjugate, by the way, x dot imag is not a method, okay, it's a attribute, it's a property. X dot conjugate, it's a method. x dot real is another property, etc. Okay. So this is how we can actually make, so x here is an object, and object of type complex class, okay, and it contains the following attributes and methods. Okay, so here if I say let us say if I say y is equal to 4 plus 2j, okay, x plus y will give you some value which will do the addition of this number and this number, okay. So that is how you will get 9 plus 5j, which means that the operation has to be defined over here. Okay, so that is the idea of object oriented programming, and now I think you must be able to quickly pick up the syntax of what was taught in the class, I mean the lecture video that I shared with you yesterday, right? Abhishek or anybody else? Students?
Yes, sir.
Do you guys think that you guys understood object oriented programming and what is the idea of classes and objects? So this, you can, I would say, is something remotely similar to your structures in C programming language, but totally different from structures, because in structures all you had were the member data types, but here we have the functions also. So here we have the member data types as well as the member functions. The member functions are called methods and the member data types are called attributes or properties.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now let me show you Python, object oriented programming, Python. Or so take a look at the Python OOPS concept on Geeks for Geeks. Okay, you can read about class, objects, polymorphism, encapsulation, inheritance and data abstraction over there, okay, and it will also give you the syntax of the code, okay. Say for example, over here we have a class called dog which has attribute 1 as some value mammal, okay, and then you have something called okay, let me tell you some concepts in object oriented programming. So here the first thing that you see here, instance attribute, okay, and it says self dot name is equal to name, okay, and it says Roger is equal to dog Roger, Tommy is equal to dog Tommy. Now what it means is that it is going to set the value name as Roger and Tommy.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and for the Roger is a attribute 1, what, mammal, it prints Roger is a mammal, Tommy is also a mammal by printing the Roger dot class attribute 1 and Tommy class attribute 1, okay, while the name is another attribute, okay, which is instantiated using this particular init function, and this particular function is something that you call as a constructor, is something called as an constructor. Just a second guys, okay, yeah, it's called a constructor. So classes objects, then constructor, or you can say it is a function to initialize the values. Okay, then you have destructor, which is a function to delete the values, delete the object. Okay, so this is an example of a class dog, and this is a object instantiation example for the class dog. Okay, another example is you have a function called speak. Okay, so instead of printing roger.name, we have something called roger.speak, and Roger will say my name is Roger, my name is Tommy. Okay, so that is what this speak function will do. And then you have something called inheritance. So inheritance can be of multiple types, it can be single inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, multiple inheritance, and it shows you how the inheritance is done. For example, class person and class employee, which inherits the class person, correct? So take a look at all these things as well, practice it, and just a second, where do I send you the, yeah, practice it, and if you have any doubts, if you have any questions, please get back to me. Otherwise, I would consider the classes and objects to be something that we have covered in detail and that you have practiced. Alright, so tomorrow we will be going on to another set of topics. Okay, so here we have an example of polymorphism. Okay, so here the bird has a function called flight, and the class sparrow and the ostrich also has a function called flight. Okay, and the flight does different things based on the different context. Okay, so that's it, guys. I'll take the attendance. Yes, do you have any questions, doubts? See, the major thing about classes and objects is about the concept. It's not just about the what do you call as the syntax. It's not just about the syntax, it's about the concept. So until and unless you understand the concept, you won't be able to do anything related to classes and objects. Okay, so it's important that you do read up. Yeah. Students, please tell me your attendance. All of you are marked absent by default at start.
Sir, Abhishek present, sir.
Yeah,
I am Durisha present, sir.
yeah,
Aditya present, sir.
Aditya. Yeah.
Akash was also there, sir, in
Yeah,
the
sure.
starting.
Alluri, Sanjana Rao, Anshika,
Ishika
Bhadraj,
present, sir.
Badraksh present, sir.
Bhupesh.
Charan
Galanki,
present, sir.
Akash Yadav present, sir.
Akash Yadav Prasad. Yeah. Harshit.
Sir, Satin present, sir.
Dheeraj. Okay.
Satin present, sir.
13.
Sir, Karthikeyan present, sir.
Karthikeyan.
Sir.
Who is present?
18.
18. Yeah. Thank you. 16, 17, 19. Yeah.
Amulya present, sir.
Malotu Amulya present. Thank you, Amulya.
22
Prabhu.
present.
Pankaj present, sir.
23 present, sir.
Yeah, sure. 24, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31.
29 present.
26 present.
28
Sir,
present.
26 present.
28 present.
28 present.
30 present, sir.
30%. 31, 32,
34 present.
34.
The 35 is also present. He wrote in the chat box.
Okay, sure. Thank you. 37, 36, 33, 32, 31.
So 33 is
36
also
also
present.
present, sir.
32
Chat
is
box.
present.
30. So
Okay.
36.
37 also present, sir.
31
So
also.
31.
Yeah.
36.
37 also.
37 also present. Yeah, sure.
So
So
36 also. He wrote in the
36
chat
also
box.
present. Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I'll tell you the name of the absentees. 6 Alluri Sanjana Rao, 11 Harshit Kumar Gupta, 12 Ritu
Sir,
Rai.
11 is present.
11 is present. Thank you. Then 16 Abhishek, 17 Swaroop, 24 Nikhil Upadhyay, 27 Raj Singh Badodria. Yeah, that's it. Thank you everyone. If you have any questions or doubts, if you do not understand any concepts, feel free to get in touch with me, ask me doubts, questions. But before doing all those things, I would suggest you to spend at least half an hour to 1 hour reading about object oriented programming and the concept of classes and objects. Okay, reading cannot
Yes,
be
sir.
replaced. Okay, if you do not read it, trust me, you're actually not learning it properly. Do read it, because I've explained it. Now go and read it and you will understand, okay, this is the concept that sir was trying to explain. Okay, thank you everyone, take care.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.